Canon EOS R7. First thoughts.
Hello everybody, welcome to the video. Hopefully you're all having amazing creative days and hopefully you're all excited as I am because Canon finally announced the EOS R7 and R10 and that's pretty exciting. I know for a lot of people they've been waiting for these more budget friendly or affordable cameras and affordable lenses in the Canon lineup. So far it's all been like the heavy stuff, the expensive stuff and $3,000 lenses and all that kind of jazz, which is fine for the professionals, but Canon's biggest segment, the big part of their market is the lower end of the market, right? So the EOS R10 and R7 are pretty exciting and I think it's going to appeal to a lot of people. Like I said, in this video, we're going to talk about the R7 and I'm excited about the R7 because I feel like Canon has been very stale recently with their developments and with the cameras that they're announcing, and they've been holding on to the past for a long time. And to me, the R7 kind of represents a leap forward for Canon, a step towards the future, a step into what everyone else is doing rather than holding on to the past. So I think that's pretty exciting. And like I said, in this video, I'm going to focus on the things in the R7 that kind of caught my eye rather than going through all the specs. And of course, if you have any questions about the R7, leave them down below as well. And I'll get back to you. I'll do my best to try and answer them. I know all this info is brand new, so let's learn together. All right, so let's start with one of the most exciting things about this camera, this new joystick. All right, so if you turn the R7 around and look at the back, you got this like multi-controller. It's got a dial and a joystick in there, and it looks really interesting. Fellow YouTuber from Toronto, Camera Conspiracies, referred to it as a nipple.
First thing I noticed was the Canon cripple nipple. This is new. It was unforeseen. I went to several psychics and nobody saw that one coming. A back wheel, it's giant, it's alien, it's foreign, it's nippular.
And if you haven't checked out his channel, he is hilarious. He's always making jokes. If you want some lighthearted camera reviews and that kind of thing, he's funny. Check out his channel. I'll link it down below. Camera Conspiracies, fun guy. So anyway, yeah, we have this new controller. So Canon got rid of the, you know what, here, let's grab another camera here. So here's the EOS R, and you have your one dial here at the front for your shutter speed and then your aperture. You have the second dial, and on the R5, you have a ring here that you can spin for ISO, or you can customize it to whatever order you want. So this dial here has been replaced with this, I guess, controller, I don't know what to call it, but it's a joystick dial kind of thing, right? So you have your joystick so you can move around your focus points, and you have your dial so you can change one of your settings like ISO or aperture. And that's pretty cool. And then this dial here has been replaced with an on-off switch, which is, I feel like it's going to confuse some people because if you're used to Canon's layout and you try and change your aperture, you might accidentally just turn off the camera. So you might have to get used to that. But it's an interesting piece of tech. And the thing I noticed on the R7 is that there's only two dials. You have your front dial and then you have that multi-controller dial, and there's no thumb dial down here for ISO. So yeah, that's a bit of a bummer. I would have liked to seen 3 rotating rings, one for shutter speed, one for aperture, one for ISO. That's the way I'm used to operating cameras. Obviously the EOS R didn't have it, and it was a little bit of a bummer, but you know, you get used to it. It would have been nice if the R7 had 3 rings, but then again, all the new RF glass has a control ring. So maybe what you need to do is, you know, control the ISO here and then shutter aperture with your right hand. Maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. We'll see, but just something to think about. There is no third dial on the R7, but you do have that new multifunction dial thingy. All right, now circling back to the on-off switch, it is now on the right side, and that is a huge change for Canon. Canon always had their on-off switches here on the left side of the camera. In my personal opinion, I hated it. I hated it so much. It's such a waste of space to have the on-off switch on the left side, and you need your left hand to turn it on and then your right hand to pull it out of the bag. It's just such a cumbersome process. You got to grab the camera and then turn it on and then bring it to your eye. With Sony's and other cameras, the on-off switch, Lumix as well, the on-off switch is at the shutter release. So you just grab the camera, you flip it on, and by the time it gets to your eye, it's already ready to shoot, and it's so much faster. You don't miss shots, especially if you're shooting weddings and events and that kind of thing. I much prefer the on-off switch here. at least now you can kind of flip it on with your thumb and then get it to your eye pretty quickly. So thank you, Canon, for moving that on-off switch closer to the right side, but I hope that in future cameras, the on-off switch goes right here to the shutter release so we can just have that one-handed operation. So it's a step in the right direction, at least. All right, so the big question when the rumors of this camera started circulating was, is Canon going to create a new sensor for this camera, or are they going to take an old sensor from one of their old cameras and pop it in here? Obviously, nobody wanted the old sensor because it's flawed tech. So from what I've been able to learn, Canon built an all-new sensor for this camera, but this is the big but here. It's a very basic sensor, and I think this was a big mistake by Canon. It's not stacked, it's not backside illuminated, it's just a regular 32.5 megapixel sensor. So the downside to that is, you know, I mean, Canon got to understand that the market for the R7 is going to be a lot of like amateur sports photographers or people who want to get into sports photography, animal and nature photographers, bird photographers, you know, plane photographers, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of this involves shooting subject matter that's moving fast. And the problem with a sensor that isn't stacked is you get that weird jello warping effect. Here's some examples from other YouTubers when they tested the camera, and you can see this volleyball is all warped, right? So for those of you who are looking to get into sports photography and an R3 is out of your price range, so you're like, hey, I'm going to buy an R7, you're going to have to deal with this nonsense. So it's unfortunate, but, you know, too bad Canon didn't put a stack sensor in this camera. It would have been a lot better. It would have been so much more worth it. So it is what it is. But hey, at least it's a brand new sensor. All right, so I wasn't expecting this, but you get the Digic X processor in the R7. So that's Canon's top of the line processor. So that's pretty awesome. And you need that processor in order for the camera to autofocus and track and calculate all those calculations in order to track something. So that's pretty awesome. And from what I've seen in other videos on YouTube from other YouTubers reviewing this camera, it looks like the autofocus on the R7 is on par with or pretty close to the EOS R3, which is Canon's flagship sports camera. So that's pretty cool, right? So if you're tracking birds, people, eyes, faces, whatever, the camera is super sticky, locks on, and just does its thing, which is awesome. Plus, the R7 also has the Digic, it has, what's it called? Dual pixel autofocus 2, which is Canon's newest autofocus system. So that's a double bonus right there. I think this camera is going to be pretty awesome in the autofocus department. All right, so for you videographers and specifically vloggers, there was something really cool I noticed with the R7. With the R5 and the R and a lot of other cameras, when you flip out the screen and you want to plug in your mic and you want to plug in your headphones, those wires block your view, blocks the screen, and it's so frustrating. But if you notice on the R7, the mic input is up at the top and the headphone jack is at the bottom. So if you have your screen out, the wires can kind of flip around the screen or above the screen and they're not going to block your view. So that is huge. That is a big step. Thank you, Canon, for that. That is finally somebody over there is thinking, and they're moving these ports around to suit customers' needs. So that's great. The only other issue that wasn't fixed is the fact that the HDMI connector there it's tiny. I don't know if that's a micro or a mini, but it's pretty tiny, and it's also in the middle of the screen. Would have been nice if it was moved to the bottom of the panel so it could just hang out the bottom or the top. Because now that there's no on-off switch on the side, you could put the HDMI port there, right? And then it could get out of the way of the screen so it doesn't interfere with people's views. So that would be kind of cool. Just something to think about for the future. And speaking of shooting vlogs and videos, the R7 does not have a record limit. And this is really cool because this is the first non-cinema camera in Canon's lineup to finally get rid of that 30-minute record limit. And to me, that represents a giant step forward for Canon. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Hopefully when the R5 Mark II comes out, it doesn't have a record limit either, because that's one of the most frustrating things with this camera. We're recording with the R5 right now. I don't care about the overheating so much. It's just that record limit. But then I guess I'm just shooting 4K. If I'm doing 4K HQ, then I guess I would care about that overheating. But yeah, so that's pretty cool. No record limit. I guess you're just your sort of whatever your media size is is what you're limited to. I don't know. I can't find any information on whether or not you can switch the cards in the R7. I know in the Sony cameras, if you have a dual card slot, you can just open the door and switch cards. And when one card fills up, it'll move to the next one. And then you can put another one in and you can just keep going and going and going. So I don't know if the R7 does that. Hopefully somebody tests that out and we can find out. The other thing too is I went onto Canon's website and I was looking at the specs, and it looks like you can power the camera through USB connection. So, I mean, if you are doing long recordings, you plug in your battery pack. Don't quote me on it. It says here, USB power adapter PDE1, powering camera on. Yes. So whatever the heck that means. I'm assuming it means yes, you can power it with an external battery or external power pack. So yeah, finally, we have a camera that doesn't have a record limit. And if you put in a nice big memory card and plug it into a power pack, you can do a nice long time lapse or whatever. So that would be super cool. All right, next. Okay, so let's switch it over to video again quickly. And there's two things that are pretty cool. One is that you get C-Log 3 in the R7, not just C-Log 3, but you get it in 10-bit C-Log 3. So that gives you a lot of latitude in terms of color grading. I know the EOS R just had simple C-Log, regular C-Log, but only an 8-bit internal recording. And if you push that too far in color grading, it fell apart pretty fast. So C-Log 3, 10-bit, awesome. But the caveat here is you can't record anything at 60 frames or higher. I think that probably includes 50 and 60 frames, 120 and all that stuff. You can't record C-Log 3. So probably 24 and 30 frames are the maximum that you can record in C-Log 3, which is fine. I mean, unless you're doing super slow-mo, but usually when you're doing slow-mo, that's only for like a little segment or whatever. Anyway, R7 has C-Log 3 and 10-bit, and that's pretty cool. And the other cool thing Canon added in the firmware is the camera knows now when it's in vertical mode. So if you're shooting reels for YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or whatever, the camera will put that data into the video file. So when you pop that video file onto your computer, it's going to play vertically. Because, you know, the thing us videographers have had to deal with for a while now is when you record vertically and pop it onto your computer, it plays horizontally. So you're twisting your head like this to look at it, or you have to load it into Premiere Pro and then rotate 90 degrees, and then you can edit the file. But now the file is just going to play on your computer and show up in Premiere Pro and all that other stuff vertically to begin with. So thank you to Canon for that. Thumbs up. I think that's a little feature, but it's going to make a big difference for those of us who record vertical video. And with the 4K video, this is pretty exciting. The R7 shoots in 7K and downsamples it to 4K in camera. So that 4K footage is going to be super crispy, clean, and sharp if that's what you want. And if you don't want that, then buy some Tiffin Pro Mist filters to kind of soften it up again. But in any case, I'm curious to see how this performs. According to the initial reviews from people who used this camera at the launch in Orlando, Florida, where it was hot, they didn't experience any overheating issues, so that's a good sign. But we'll see what happens when this camera gets into testers' hands, because sometimes these people who get you know, the free trip to somewhere to review the camera don't give you the honest opinion or who knows what. But when these cameras get out into YouTubers' hands and they start getting real life reviews, then we'll see what it leads to. So hopefully, fingers crossed again, hope for the best with this, and it would be really cool to be able to record 2-3 hours or some long format video without the camera overheating, and it's all 7K downsampled to 4K. That'd be pretty cool, especially for like client interviews and that kind of thing. Now moving on to the battery, the R7 uses the same battery as, you know, the R, the R5, the R6, all of them, the LP battery. And you know what? I'm glad that Canon keeps using the same battery, but at the same time, I think it's time for this battery to be retired. I think it's time for a new battery. And I know, again, I hate to say it because I've got like 6 or 7 of these batteries and I don't want to invest in new batteries, but the power that these cameras, these new cameras are consuming is just draining the battery so fast, especially if you're shooting in video, using that autofocus all the time. The batteries just, they drain quickly. So either Canon's got to come up with a new kind of, I guess, solution so they can pack more energy into their battery so they last longer, or we need a bigger, physically bigger battery. All right, I'm super stoked about the new RF mount and the new RF-S lenses. Remember these guys, these were the old EFS lenses, and they did not fit on the full frame Canon cameras. These didn't fit on the EF mount. The new mount, the new RF-S lenses fit on all RF mounts. And likewise, the regular RF lenses with the RF mount fit on the R7. So you could buy an 85 1.2 and you could stick that on an R7 and it would be magnified because you have the 1.6 crop factor. So just take 85 times 1.6 and that'll be your new focal length with this lens on that camera, and that's going to be a nice long focal length with incredible compression probably. So yeah, thank you to Canon for making one mount with the both lens types. So even if you want to stick an RF-S lens on an R5, you can do that. You'll just have to shoot in the crop mode in order to use it. So that's pretty cool. All the lenses are interchangeable amongst all the cameras. I like that. The only thing, I'll just say it right now, the only thing I didn't like about these new RF-S lenses is they are ugly. Like, who designed these things? They are just so like, oh my God, welcome to 1995. It's just, they're just, aesthetically, they're not very nice looking. But anyway, that's a thing for another video. Let's move on to the next point. And unlike the EOS R, the R7 has that new hot shoe connector, and that's pretty awesome. It has like a digital port up there, so you can plug a Canon mic into that, so you can record directly into the camera without the use of a wire connecting into the mic input. So that's awesome. And the Tascam also makes a recording device that you can put on top of the camera, and I think you can plug XLR mics right into it and record right into the camera, that's fantastic. Now, the other thing too is this camera is weather sealed to the level of the 90D, whatever that means. So I guess it's not storm rated, or I don't know what that means, but I guess you can take it in light rain, maybe not heavy rain. Now, the one thing I noticed is that there's two onboard mics on the camera. And if you look at the top of the camera, I guess on the forehead, you see the two holes, and those are the mic inputs. And I'm wondering why those are there, because if you're using the camera in the rain gets in there. I know I used to shoot with the G7X way back when I first started vlogging, and you know, a raindrop fell right into that mic hole and my audio was messed up. And also if you're shooting sports, you know, dirt bike stuff, dusty stuff, all that dust is going to settle and fall into those holes, and eventually it's just going to get clogged. And I don't know, I just think it's a silly place to put the mics. I preferred the old style where they just have like the mics on the front. At the top just doesn't make sense. Dust and stuff is always falling on there. So just something to be cautious of. I guess if you're not using those mic ports and you're using external mics, maybe just put a piece of gaffer's tape over it so stuff doesn't fall in there. Just a thought. Now, an interesting thing I heard some of the reviewers talk about was auto leveling. So if you're shooting video or photo and the camera is off kilter just a little bit, I guess the camera will take the IBIS and it'll twist the sensor to line up the horizon so you stay perfectly horizontal. That's a really interesting feature. I kind of applaud Canon for that. I think GoPro has stuff like that, so it's not necessarily brand new tech, but I haven't seen this in any other Canon cameras, so that's cool to see them innovating like that. And the interesting thing is, like, if you're shooting landscapes and you're kind of off a little bit, and you want to fix that in like cropping in post, you kind of have to like twist the photo and crop in a little bit so you lose some resolution. So with this tech, maybe you don't have to lose the resolution if the sensor just shifts a little bit to stay horizontal. That'd be cool. Also, I'm curious to see what this feature will do in video. If you're vlogging and walking down the street, if your camera is kind of like bobbing like this way, that way, will it level out the horizon and make it more stable? Interesting. I'm curious to test out this camera and see what it can do. All right, so those are the features on the EOS R7 that excited me. Hopefully they excited you. Let me know in the comments down below which features got your juices going. What are you excited to see? For me, I think it was that joystick dial thingy. I think that's kind of cool. I want to know how that operates. I want to know how it feels to use it. I think it's kind of cool to have the dial and the joystick in one place so you're not moving your thumb too much. But at the same time, I'm kind of bummed that the R7 doesn't have 3 dials. It only has the 2 dials. So I mean, exposure triangle, right? You want one dial for your aperture, one for your shutter speed, one for your ISO. and you want to be ready to roll, you know? So we'll see how it handles. I think the camera starts shipping in June. So in June, people are going to get it in their hands, and, you know, you'll get some honest reviews out there on YouTube. Also, this red stuff here on the screen, those are PDFs from Canon Australia. I'll link them down in the description below, and that's all the information on the R7 and R10. So if you want to download it and take a look at it, there you go. Now, will I be buying on R7? I don't know. Maybe. I definitely want to try it out because I think it looks like a really cool camera, but I've also at the same time fallen in love with the Fuji system. So I've had my heart set on an XS10. I just haven't pulled the trigger on it. Now we have the R7. Which one do I go for? I don't know. Maybe I'll do, you know what? I should do a video where I compare the two on paper in a video, and then we can hash it out on YouTube and see which one's better. And you guys can leave your comments in that video and let me know what you think. Because now that Canon is finally making APS-C size sensors, they're competing directly with Fuji, and Fuji sort of owns the APS-C market because that's what they... So the batteries on the receiver died. I've filmed 3 YouTube videos with this Sennheiser mic system, and I guess that's the limit. But in any case, I will be reviewing this unit. There's the thumbnail, and when the video is ready, the review's ready, it'll be linked up there as well as in the description down below. So if you want to check that out, go watch it and leave a comment there for me too. Let me know what you think of the audio quality with these labs. But back to what we were talking about. XS10, R7, which one? I don't know. But I will make a video on YouTube comparing the two. So if you want to see that, definitely subscribe to the channel. And we'll just line up the specs with the Fuji camera and line up the specs with the Canon camera, because Fuji was the king of the APS-C domain. They've been producing cameras there for a while. Now Canon has the new RF mount cameras with the APS-C, and now they're entering that sphere. So let's see what's the difference. Let's compare the cameras and see where it goes. But in any case, this video is over. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Leave comments down below. Would definitely appreciate it. Helps grow this channel, and that's what I'm trying to do. So yeah, hopefully you all have amazing days. You enjoyed this video. Peace out. I will see you guys in the next video.